Adobe Acrobat Studio is all new. What can PDF spaces with AI do? Drag in research, drop in thoughts. Watch AI pull insights from your docs. You did your thing, it's time to share. Then let your team build from there. Now you can do that. Do that with the all new Acrobat.
Maria, you appear to be muted. Yeah, can you?
Thank you very much. So,
Yep.
hello and everyone and welcome. I apologize for that. What a way to begin. Thank you so much for joining us today for our today's session, Building AI-Powered Document Workflows That Deliver. I'm your host, Maria Daku, and I'm fully in control of my mic now. We have a great group of speakers that are going to be joining us today. We have JP Gounder and Corey McNair, who are joining us from Forrester, and we have Laura DeFurio and Costa Lassie, who are joining us from Adobe. So this is how we're going to spend our time today. First, we're going to hear from JP, who's going to tell us about the state of the landscape in AI-powered productivity. Costa and I are then going to turn our attention to document productivity in the AI era, and we're going to unpack some Adobe Digital Insights data and to see Acrobat Studio in action, so you don't have to guess what it looks like. And then finally, Corey is going to share some research that comes from the total economic impact of the Adobe Acrobat Studio study that Forrester has done. We're going to have plenty of time for questions and answers, so feel free to submit your questions as we go. And we'll also have experts responding in real time. So we'll be able to answer some questions at the end and answer questions as we go as well. So when something piques your interest, let us know in the survey pods that are right to the right of your screen, and we'll be sure to follow up as we go along. And yes, this session is being recorded and will be sent to you after we wrap. So with that, let's kick off with a poll. Please take a moment to think about your day-to-day as it stands now. How often do you use AI-powered tools in your document workflows? Can you think about any touch points in your daily document journey? Document creation, editing, review, redaction, analysis. Where does AI show up for you and where are you not using it yet? So if you can take a look at these, the options here, we expect that we're going to see some things across the spectrum, but we're looking forward to hearing from you right now. So can you think, are you still assessing what you need to do? Are you already running some pilots? Are you raring to go right now? Or is everything run by AI as we go along? Okay, we can see a bunch of answers are coming in, and it looks largely as we expected. People are really running the gamut, right? So even where you're using AI in maybe one workflow, it may not be going right across your entire business. Okay. So as we can see, we do have those answers spread along, and we will continue to see your responses as we go along. So remember, you can continue to engage with us in the pod as we go. I'd like to look forward now to welcoming our first speaker, and that's JP Gounder, who's joining us from Forrester. Welcome, JP. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your role and the work that you do.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm an analyst on the Future of Work team, and I very much spend my time talking to enterprise leaders about the intersection between AI and the workforce in all of its different areas.
Okay, so thank you. Many employees we see today are worried about what AI is going to do their jobs. And so many of them we find actually want to stay away from AI altogether. Is that a warranted concern? Are they thinking about things the right way?
Yeah, I think that we have a lot of fears, and you can see on this slide that losing one's job is among them. There are fears about confidence. Can I adapt to using AI tools at work? Do I have the skills, the understanding, the ethics to use AI successfully? Will it steal my job? Is it worth the time I need to invest in learning it, which is often scarce during the day? Some employees don't even know what's in it for them, that they are actually expanding their own career paths. And a small number are also overconfident about using AI. So all of these concerns are on the table. Now, to answer your question, for the most part, people are not losing their jobs to AI in the way that you hear about it in the media. In fact, there's a lot of AI washing that goes on. AI washing is when you lay a bunch of people off for financial reasons and then you blame it on AI. But in reality, behind the scenes, AI is not doing those jobs that people have just lost. So what I would say is that the irony of the AI market today is that if you want great results, if you want to get return on your investment in AI, you have to invest in your people. You have to make them both skilled and also aware of what is actually going on.
Well, that makes sense. So how can employers think about how they are going to take those steps to help their employees be more successful with the tools that are available to them?
Yeah. Well, one thing that we can do as leaders is that you can invest in the understanding, the hard skills, the soft skills, and the ethics of your employees. That is to say, we call this AIQ, the artificial intelligence quotient, but whether you use Forrester's term or not is not important. It's rather that you get an understanding of where your workers are. Do they have a basic understanding of how AI works? Do they have some of the hard skills that are necessary to use some of the suites that they've been given? For example, some AI solutions require a lot of prompt engineering, and so you have to be sure that they're learning that. What about softer skills? Do they feel comfortable? Do they feel confident? That can't just be taught. You need to earn that. And ultimately, we want people to use these tools in an ethical fashion, which means first understanding what ethics are in an AI context. So we look at this quantitatively, and what we find is that across two different benchmarks, one of them is sort of your average white-collar information worker. That is sort of the base, and then experts, which is a much smaller group. But if you look at this across all the questions we ask to measure AIQ across those competencies I just mentioned, only 16% of your average information workers has what we would call a high AIQ, meaning that they are ready today across the board, across understanding skills and ethics to be successful using AI. So we have to invest in comprehensive learning systems to help people to gain those skills, build their confidence, understand the ethical dimensions. And lastly, I will say this. There's also something to be said for the choice of AI deployment. Not all AI solutions are created equally. They don't require the same amounts of AIQ. So one thing you can also do is to calibrate the kinds of tools to the AIQ of your employees. If you give someone a really open-ended and really complicated, you can do anything with this tool, that may be less effective than saying, hey, here's a tool to do documents specifically.
That makes so much sense. And thank you for bringing the context, right? We read so much, it can feel very all over the place. So we really appreciate your expertise there. Thank you, JP.
Thanks for having me.
So having heard this wonderful laying the ground by JP, we're going to move into talking about document productivity. And I know we have a quick video there to help us with that transition and see what we're going to be talking about. So let's have a look.
Businesses are facing loads of pressure to do more on really tight timelines. Teams are asked to analyze information trapped in lengthy documents, create engaging content without design skills, and collaborate from anywhere like they're in the same room. They need a tool they can trust, one that helps teams do it all so they can bring their best work together on time, every time. Meet Adobe Acrobat Studio, the new app that gives teams the power to unlock faster insights, create on-brand content, and work together using their favorite PDF tools. It's like having a strategist, writer, and designer in one.
That was fun. It's always great to be able to see some of the really exciting and creative content that comes from Adobe. So now we're getting ready to talk to an expert that we are providing ourselves. So Costa Lassie, it is such a pleasure to talk to you. Can you introduce yourself and tell everyone about the work that you do here at Adobe?
Thank you, Maria. Hi, everyone. I am Costa Lassie. I have been an analyst at Adobe for the past 9 years, looking at the digital economy, creativity, and productivity. In the last, most recent year, we've been really trying to understand how is AI affecting the way professionals interact with documents and how it's making them more productive. So let's dive into the research. We did it by combining both internal, aggregated, and anonymized data, and also a survey of about 500 business professionals to really understand the broader picture, more general, and not only our internal projects. And the top insight is that 97% of people are feeling the benefits of AI in their document productivity. But the interesting part is how those benefits are felt across the different users. The top two are speed and automation. And those go hand in hand, and they're kind of no surprise. Like anybody who's used AI knows that it can make their processes less manual and therefore faster. But the one that really surprised us was the fewer errors one, the accuracy. Anybody who has used AI at this point knows about AI hallucination. It is common knowledge. But the more we thought about it, the more we realized that AI allows you to bring a lot more context in. And it allows you to really understand documents and a quantity of documents that would not have been possible previously. So if you adapt and if you account for the fact that there's hallucinations, you really are able to be more accurate. However, for business critical details and insights, you should really still verify. But if you're in the middle of editing a document and you're deep in the weeds, and now all of a sudden there's a really critical insight that you want to double check, if you have to step out of that workflow, and if you have to restart manually, then you really lose all of those AI gains that you got previously. So Mario, why don't you tell us how Adobe's tools allow us to trust but verify when needed?
So yeah, thank you. So I mean, I work in Acrobat Studio every day, and within Acrobat Studio, which is different from some of the other tools that I may be using from time to time, I am able to get a line item attribution. That means that when I get a response to a query that I've made, I'm able to go and click on that little button and see exactly where the content is coming from. And these line item attributions are a lifesaver when I'm doing really high responsibility detailed work, and I need to have that high confidence level that you were talking about in my output. And I also need the receipts to prove it. I know sometimes with some of the other tools I've used, it just takes me to the first page of a long document or the top of a website, and that can be hard to manage. So this is a really differentiated experience that I'm able to get when I'm working in Acrobat Studio. And so that the folks that are with us today don't have to guess or just look at this static picture of what Studio can look like, I know that we have a demo from Lori here. She's going to be able to show us the product in action. So Lori, let's turn it over and see what you've got for us.
Regardless of where we work in an organization, there's dense, long, and complex documents everywhere. Contracts, slide presentations, policies, and standards. And many of these are PDFs. A PDF was built to be read by a person, not a machine. The good news? Adobe invented PDF and has spent over 30 years teaching machines to read it. We call this document native AI. Here's a partner agreement, a contract. I can ask AI Assistant to summarize it or identify key terms. This contract was signed in 2024, and our organization just released an update to our Vendor Information Security Standard. Is this agreement still compliant? Historically, this would take me hours to understand what's new in the standard and then identify if there are gaps to address in this agreement. I'll bring these two documents together in Acrobat and just ask, does this agreement align to our security standards? Are there conflicts or gaps? And format it as a table. Every result comes with precise sentence-level attribution, and the answers are grounded in your curated documents, not from the web and not from other sources. So let's create a red line action list to take the next steps. I'll save it as a note for reference and share it with my legal peers. Clicking the link from email brings them directly to the note, including the attributions. I mentioned sentence-level attributions, but remember, Acrobat reads the document as a person and can identify headings, tables, and provide attribution directly to the source. Here's a sales order from 2024 that's coming up for renewal in 2027. I've opened it from a Microsoft Teams channel where the team is working on the opportunity. And I'll ask, what's the spend on Tumblr, and format it as a bullet list. The response has attributions to each of the rows in the tables. And as a bonus, the LLM does the math for me. Contract spent, $210,000. Across organizations, there are cross-functional initiatives and teams working on new products, new processes, new tools. Maya is a program manager at Altura Technology. They're launching a new product, Altura Zenith. She's collected input from each group, a product roadmap, customer feedback analysis, resources required, an engineering feasibility assessment, and marketing provided their go-to-market timeline slides. She needs to synthesize all of this into a decision brief for leadership in the next hour, understanding alignment, what are the risks, and what is the recommendation to leadership that may impact the product launch. First, she sets up an AI agent with instructions to assist with the task at hand. Now, when chatting with AI Assistant, the response is anchored on these instructions. Then she asks for insights. What are the key assumptions everyone's making about timeline? What are the resource constraints? What are our biggest risks? And what needs to happen before we launch? Again, each of the answers are grounded in these documents. Attributions show her exactly where the information was sourced from. Now that Maya is more familiar with the content, she's ready to prepare the brief for leadership, including instructions on how to structure the answer, audience, tone, length, and formatting. This is a great first draft, which can be edited here, saved as a PDF, and shared with leadership. And that's Document Native AI at work.
So important to see the solution in action so we don't have to guess at what it's going to look like. And I think that really brings it to life. So Kirsta, can you, having seen this, can you tell us a little bit more about where we're seeing the biggest changes in how people are using AI?
Yeah, it's interesting to see the demo, and it flows right into our next point. Once you've figured out how to ingest the information, this information that's scattered across all of these documents and tools, the next step is in communicating it out to that leadership, to that C-level meeting. And we've seen that the biggest change in our internal data, the biggest increase in AI usage is in editing and creating new content. And unfortunately, the way the content looks is important. That is just the reality of it. 70% of business professionals mentioned that they've seen dramatically better outcomes with better document design. So because of this, 57% of them are enhancing the design of their documents every week. And professionals mentioned that they want AI's help in creating these infographics and creating the PowerPoints. And most importantly, the tedious work is in making sure that that AI content stays on brand and doesn't just look like all the generic AI created content from all across the internet. Maria, how can PDF Studio really help us become better visual communicators in the AI world?
So I can tell you about that, but I'm so glad that you said in the remarks you were just making that they are choosing to this. I am not a creative. I have never been, although I work with so many creative people. And I will say 5 years ago, I could get away with making really ugly slides. But for me now, this is not about what I choose to do, is about what's required of me, right? I'm not making more gorgeous output, more on-brand content because I want to. I'm doing it because it's an expectation. Most of my career, it was those blue and gray, really ugly slides. If I could just write the words on it, it was all right. That's simply not okay anymore. As you were saying, Costa, the expectation is higher for every level of output. And so before, what I used to be able to do when it was really important, I could send it to an agency. I could go and request budget and do things like that. No more. I don't need to do that. With Acrobat Studio, I can create that really great input right now. And to your point, keep it on brand as well. So not only is it aesthetically appealing, it is in line with my brand as well. And to that point you made about infographics, I would not have dared a little while ago. But now it's a different story entirely. So Costa, can you tell me about some of the other pain points that you talked about? We talked about gorgeous output. What else is there?
Yeah, anybody who's worked on a large project knows that it's no surprise that collaboration can be felt tough. But it is something that we have to do constantly. 78% of professionals reported collaborating with others on documents, at least on a weekly basis. And half of the surveyed mentioned that their biggest pain point was pulling information scattered across multiple documents, tools, folders. And the second one is, again, just collaborating on documents with other teams. So they kind of go hand in hand. So it's no surprise that 3/4 of all surveyed wanted some sort of document storage that they can prompt with AI. And while it is possible to set something up that is custom with your personal agent on your personal machine with your own customized library of knowledge, however, the pain point arises when you're trying to combine those knowledge bases across different people. And so users don't really want tools where collaboration is just an afterthought. They want a shared space to keep track of all their most business critical documents and to work on them together. Maria, where does collaboration fit in with Acrobat Studio's workflows?
Well, I know that you and I are talking about this a little bit when we were getting ready for this session, and we have shared that both of us, we use a variety of tools, right? We don't just use one tool for everything. And so I personally spend time working in a bunch of different tools and can gain some productivity gains from any, in fact, probably all of them, something. However, when it comes to working together with my team, I know that I'm consistently driven back to PDF spaces within Studio, because that is where my team and I do our AI-powered collaborative work. So we saw a little bit of this in what Laurie had shown us, and I know she's going to show us some more, but we can bring together the right documents, and that's where we store our hive mind. We can build a shared collection of our most relevant documents and ask questions and gather contextually verified insights based on just that curated collection right there. We're not asking for random internet stories or old versions that may be stored somewhere in a repository. And so within that collaborative space, that's where we see our biggest gains and our most trusted outputs. So that's fantastic. And now, Laurie, I think that you have another demo that's going to be able to bring some of those capabilities to life for us. So Laurie, let's turn it over to you.
Here's the PDF space that Maya created earlier for Zenith launch plan readiness. She has shared it with cross-functional team members, Daniel DeForest from product, Akira Tanaka from engineering ops, Tony Blue from research, and Gloria Berry from marketing. Each core team member can access the PDF space, review documents and notes, add their own feedback, and use the customized assistant. Leveraging a PDF space for your project ensures all collaboration is in one place and not spread out across emails, chats, or storage locations. Maya just received this spreadsheet with early product feedback from employees testing a pre-release of Zenith. That's an example of customer zero at Altura. There's great information here, but it's a bit dense. She's not a creative, and determining what to include, how much detail, how to format, and so on would take some time. Instead of using multiple apps or relying on creative support, she can use Acrobat to create a first draft. She adds this multi-worksheet Excel file and adds a prompt to let AI Assistant know her goal. Configuration options include selecting a customizable target audience, so Acrobat Studio can tailor the presentation's tone and message, and adjusting the length of the presentation so the slides match the depth and detail desired. Next, she selects from Altura's branded templates designed in Adobe Express. In seconds, the system produces a polished, on-brand summary of the feedback. This is a great overview, and if she needs to iterate, no problem. Express is intuitive and makes it easy to update the output. She adds it, along with the source Excel file as a reference, to the PDF space. PDF spaces can contain up to 100 files and become the source of truth for a program or project, in this case, the Altura Zenith product launch readiness. Sources can be added by anyone who's a contributor and from everywhere. Maya selects the Acrobat extension in Google Chrome to add this wiki page with engineering specs to the PDF space. It looks like the team has been busy. Maya immediately sees that everyone has viewed and contributed to the PDF space. There's a meeting transcript and a Slack chat added by Akira, the one-page summary and FAQ from Gloria in marketing, And in addition to the customer zero employee feedback, Tony has added new customer reviews as well. There's feedback on some of the materials. Here's a comment from Tony Blue, and more comments are indicated by this icon. Akira added this note, and Maya wants to highlight this part of the note and where it came from. Adding comments is simple. Just select the citation to find its source, the document and the page, and then use the built-in commenting tools to highlight the result and add feedback. Everything curated in a PDF space can be used to generate new content as needed. End of quarter reporting, summaries, emails or blog drafts, or in this case, a sales enablement presentation. Maya just selects which template to use, and just like that, she has a first draft of the sales enablement presentation. Costa mentioned that 20% of the AI prompts are used for editing and rewriting. Maya asks AI Assistant to edit the text here. She's presented with controls and then multiple suggestions to choose from. It's easy to replace images as well. Let's change up this image. Just select Replace, and instead of looking around the internet for an image, Maya can choose from over 280 million commercially safe assets, photos, videos, and more for the presentation. And for this thank you slide, she wants to change the background to match their offices. I'm sure there's a way to do this using the editing tools, but she can just ask AI Assistant to help. Replace this background with a brick wall to look more like our offices. Leveraging Adobe Express templates and their guardrails enabled Maya to spend less time formatting and more time on what matters. And with PDF space sharing, a version can be created to share with everyone across Altura Technology to get them familiar with the product launch. This overview page helps with understanding what's included, and employees can chat to learn more. No need to search internet pages or other resources. Everything is in one, always-on enablement hub. If the materials change, just replace the file. No need to re-enable or redistribute because the PDF space URL stays the same. Mario, back to you.
So thank you, Laurie. And I've got to tell my creative colleagues, look out, I will be almost as cool as they are right now. If I can replace the background, anyone can. It's really bringing me up to speed. So turning back to you, Costa, I have one last question for you. And that would be, what would you say to somebody who is on the fence about, what they need to do next? What would they need to do? What would be the best thing they could do to get a little bit of extra time back into their business schedule? And what kind of benefits can they see if they give AI and Acrobat Studio a go?
Yeah, Maria, I think Corey will dive deeper into the impact of adopting Acrobat Studio more specifically. But what I can say more broadly is that power users are really seeing the biggest time savings right now. Professionals who have embraced AI in our surveys are reporting twice as much time savings as those who are a little bit more casual. And half of the power users report over 4 hours saved each week. It's a full workday that you claw back every other week. So based on these insights, based on these surveys, I'd say that it's really worth it to put aside some deliberate time to learn AI tools and to see how they can really help your workflows, help you automate it, be accurate, and be faster.
So thank you so much, Costa. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. And I'll tell you, what I've heard so far is AI is not coming for all of our jobs. It is improving our lives here. And from you, Costa, here, we should jump in with both feet and really get some of that value back, right?
That's exactly it. Yeah, just jump in and try it.
Jump in and try it. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. And we're going to move over now and have a chance to talk with Corey. So, Corey, can you introduce yourself and can you tell us what you are doing at Forrester and how you've been working together?
Yeah, sure thing, Maria. Hi, I'm Corey McNair, a senior consultant here over at Forrester. And yeah, a few months ago, Adobe reached out to us here to analyze the total economic impact of Adobe Acrobat Studio for organizations. And so I'm just going to give you a brief run through of some of those results today.
Great, thanks.
All right. So just to get started for some background, because I'm sure some of you aren't familiar with what a total economic impact study is. It's a methodology that's been in place here at Forrester for 30 years or more, where we as a third party assess the holistic value of different technologies. So we take the concept of return on investment, of weighing benefits against costs, a step further by talking to customers and fielding surveys with hundreds of respondents about their experiences with technology solutions. So in this case, we spoke to enterprise organizations across industries, geographies, and roles to hear about their individual use cases for Adobe Acrobat Studio and to really understand the flexibility of the solution in driving quantifiable value for them in both productivity and business outcomes. And we risk adjusted all those results into something that's realistic, grounded, and make sure that the results aren't just theoretical, that they're applicable to organizations of different sizes. So, what exactly do those results look like? When organizations move from fragmented work to more connected AI-powered workflows. Well, for our analysis, we start by blending together who we interviewed and surveyed into a composite organization, an aggregate that represents an enterprise-sized Adobe Acrobat Studio customer. And it's a company that's not beholden to one industry. It has a few thousand employees and hundreds of thousands of documents to manage. And you can see that at the bottom of the slide here. And this really is meant to represent the foundation upon which we apply our analysis. So for our organization, after adopting Adobe Acrobat Studio, they saw significant results, a 357% return on investment over 3 years. And another way to say this is that for every dollar they spent on the solution, they got that dollar back. And then on top of that, an additional $3.57. In terms of net present value, that represents over $2 million as if they were to invest in it today. And there were multiple factors impacting this outcome, driven by improvements across the entire workflow. And on an annual basis, Acrobat Studio helped teams to avoid 44,000 hours in managing PDFs and realize the equivalent of 25,000 hours in greater productivity around creating a visual content. Now, I know those look like really large numbers, but the thing you need to understand is that when you connect to workflows, the impact compounds in both productivity and overall value. So let's unpack a little bit more how we arrived at some of these results here. As has been mentioned earlier in this webinar, Acrobat Studio can help users to become more efficient in reading and collecting insights from documents. And so, throughout the study, you can find anecdotes from people that we spoke to, and I want to share one that stood out to me, which was from a leader at an insurance company. They were trying to select a new tech vendor to work with. And so their way of approaching this with Acrobat Studio was to upload files on each vendor that they are considering. And so they put those files into PDF spaces and work with AI Assistant to generate for themselves a cross analysis of those vendors, starting with the pros and cons list, and then eventually evolving it into a matrix, comparing the different features and functions, which all help to accelerate their decision making on which vendor to go with. Now, that's just one example, and there's a range of outcomes from users on these efficiencies. But at a minimum, for our analysis, we're estimating that a company can be more efficient in document management by at least one third, or the 35% improvement that you see here. And so, a simple way to look at this is that if you're to go on a document basis, we assume at our composite organization they handled 9,000 documents per week before Acrobat Studio, spending 10 to 20 minutes on each of those. Now they're up to over 3,000 more that they can handle in that given time, taking on more than 12,000 documents on a weekly basis, because they're able to get to them that much faster. Summarize the results, find the citations that are traceable, and trust those insights. And so that's just one benefit. That's just document review. But let's touch again on the content production that we've already discussed here. We've heard that PDF spaces can help with accelerating creation of presentations. So a VP that we spoke to at a hospitality organization shared that they were launching a new marketing initiative. And different team members across marketing, creative, analytics, and the business team for budgeting, they all had separate files in different formats to upload to PDF spaces with information that would go into this presentation for this marketing initiative, for this pitch. So instead of one or two people volunteering to collect these files from colleagues and to make the presentation themselves, by having all the people upload these files to a shared workspace, they're able to get PDF spaces to quickly generate a presentation, and toggling within Acrobat Studio the length of it, the audience type, and the level of detail that they wanted into a presentation that essentially made itself. with all the details that they needed. And it only required some like having a manuscript for a book done and just needing an editor to review, after they were through with it with Acrobat Studio. And this really accelerated collaboration for them because they had a draft to start sharing feedback and iterating on immediately. They also noted from there that alongside the presentation decks, they could use PDF spaces, to help maybe generate some one-pagers that they could share with teams that couldn't attend the presentation, really summarizing what they discussed there. And so all this will vary person to person, depending on how many presentations they make and the size of those presentations. But taking the conservative approach as we do with our analysis, if you spend an hour a week on these presentations, you can see close to 30% time savings with each of those presentations that you build. And so it'll take just over 40 minutes each week to accomplish that same amount of work. Now, we also heard that Acrobat Studio can help to streamline with the review and checks on your content as being in compliance with any guidelines that you have to follow. And so, we heard how there's Adobe Express as part of Acrobat Studio, which can enable you to templatize asset creation. So even non-creatives can use it to generate on-brand images. Just swapping out visuals on a template or changing the text, simple alterations between content. So according to our panel of who we interviewed and surveyed, this removed bottlenecks around the review of content because you're sticking to the templates and not coloring outside of the lines. And all these non-creatives can, create new content essentially based on what has come before. So altogether, these reviews were accelerated by 80%. So if someone had spent half a workday on these reviews, 4 hours of the day, it now takes less than an hour. Now, all these efficiencies I just described, it has an actual tangible impact on revenue. And according to our survey of hundreds of users of Acrobat Studio, 57% agreed that there is a faster time to market that influences revenue growth because they're able to accelerate their decision making, because they're able to put together their campaigns faster because of the decision making is that much faster, and they can share those insights. That's how they're able to drive that much more revenue. So I know I just shared a lot of numbers, and you're probably asking yourself, how do these apply to me? A composite organization that we have here in our study may be of a different size and shape than what your organization currently is. But you can find the full total economic impact study online for Adobe Acrobat Studio and find more details on the calculations, the entire tables of how we arrived at these numbers. You can also find anecdotes from customers, speaking to their trust in Acrobat Studio and its insights. And most importantly, you can also find a calculator in the study that's built into the page. And so you can change the results based on the industry that you work in, the number of employees that you have at your organization. And there's also more customizable inputs to further personalize this ROI model that we built for you, so you can have some results to hopefully justify the investment in Acrobat Studio for your organization. So I encourage you to play around with that. That covers what I had to share from the study today. Maria.
I was going to say, Corey, that calculator, for everybody who's looking at it, is over on the right, down towards the bottom. Click on it. It is fantastic. And I feel those numbers in my soul, and then the ability to go and adjust them for each use case is fantastic. So even before I thank you for all of your expertise and time, I did want to come right back to that point because the calculator is boss.
Awesome.
So thank you for sharing all of this expertise and going so deep. And before you go away, Corey, actually, I'm going to invite all of our experts to come back because I know that we have been receiving lots of questions as we've been going along. So even before we answer the questions, I did want to thank JP. I want to thank Costa. I want to thank Corey, and I want to thank Laurie for your wonderful, as I said, the expertise and bringing this to life. And I have a list of questions that I'm going to come and share as I scroll through them. And Laurie, can we start with you? So
Sure.
The first question that came through is, are there security issues that we want to be aware of when we're thinking about AI-powered documents?
Yeah, and I'll reference it in the reference of Acrobat Studio, which is, of course, what we were talking about today. Number one, I say this all the time, is your data is your data. Adobe's philosophy is we don't train on your data, any LLMs, we don't save your data. It's all about you. It's all about your data. So you don't have to ever worry that the documents that you're bringing into the Adobe environment to do AI, checking out sort of you saw in the demo, don't worry about it. And I know that somebody put into the chat pod, Lori K, thanks Lori, a link to our Trust Center. But I'd also, if somebody could post the link for me, there's a brand new, hot off the presses yesterday, security white paper all about Acrobat Studio. It just came out yesterday. So it's on the Trust Center, but I think that's such a really good point. And if anybody else wants to, pile on about security inside of documents, but we've taken this approach of document native AI. It's all about, we did the documents first, and then we added the AI on top. So there's, PDFs have been secure for 30 plus years. So that, it's kind of a little bit of both.
Thank you. And Lori, while I have you, I'm going to ask another before I swap to some of our experts. So speaking about documents have versions. So how does Acrobat Studio handle version control when you have lots of people collaborating together? How do you know what you're looking at the latest?
Well, I wouldn't really call it version control in the sense of, if you think of maybe in Microsoft Word, how you do versions. But what happens is when you've brought your materials together in the PDF space, which I showed in a little bit of both demos, you can see who opened the file, what they did to the file. Did they add a comment? Did they add a new file to the thing? So you can always see what's happening within that PDF space. And even when you open it for the first time, it'll show you how many views it's had. So we really try to make sure that everybody that's participating can see what everybody else is up to. And with the comments, I'm just going to say one more thing. You have the ability to build threaded comments. So I say, make it red. And the next guy says, make it green. And the next guy says, make it blue. And we come back in 6 months and say, how did we end up on that decision? It's not in an email somewhere. It's not somewhere over a Slack channel. It's right there in line showing how those decisions got made.
Fantastic. So we'll know exactly whose fault it was, but or whose great decision was making.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question I have, I'm going to turn over to either Corey or JP, because these are some Forrester questions. And the first one actually comes back to calculator type questions that we were talking about. And our listener has asked us, how can I use the case study to determine what my costs and benefits are and the ROI might be if my company invested in Acrobat Studio? Talk a little about the calculator. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, sure. So, we try to be as conservative as possible in terms of the results that we show in the study. There's these percentage improvements throughout it. And so we really try to make sure that those are applicable to companies of different sizes, generally on the enterprise scale, but understanding that there's different industries and whatnot. And so we really work to make the calculator scalable. So based on whatever inputs you put in there of your industry or the types of roles that you're working with, the results will scale. And we also used our survey as a reference point for this because we talked across industries. So we could have reference points of what it looks like for those industries to then scale the results for those different, use cases and how many documents they have to manage or presentations they have to work with. So if you're putting in your inputs there, you can trust that the results will be more personalized for your type of organization.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. And I was a fibber. I said we'd answer loads of questions, but we're coming so close to time that I'm just going to ask one more. And this one is for you, Lori, as well. And the rest of the questions, we will answer all of them, but we will do it via written content rather than an oral discussion. So Lori, can Acrobat Studio generate content based on an organizational template or brand guideline? Can you help us with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that became clear in that second demo. But what happens is you upload into the environment, the Acrobat Studio platform, your templates, your brand guidelines, your fonts, your colors, the things that represent yourself, your logos. Then when you say generate a presentation or create me this or whatever you're going to do, you can point at your content so that it has your look and feel like we did with that Altura Zenith tool in the demo. So absolutely, that's one of the nicest things about this Acrobat Studio platform is you've got the document intelligence, you've got the collaboration, and of course, you've got the creation layer as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to Corey, to Lori, to JP, and to Costa. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. This has been a wonderful session. I've learned so much, and I sit in this all the time, so I hope our audience has as well. And I hope that you will remember this has been recorded, so you can go back and you can listen again and again and again. Thank you all.